Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, Congress officially proclaims Bongbong Marcos as president-elect and Sara Duterte as vice president-elect. How does the future of foreign policy and Philippine-American relations look under a Marcos Jr. administration? Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Manuel Babe Romualdez, joins us live. And what will be the priorities of Marcos Jr.'s incoming migrant workers secretary, Susan Toots Ople, also joins us later on in the program. A historic election concludes with another Marcos back in power and another Duterte in the country's second highest post. Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte won by a majority vote in the May 9 polls, the first since 1986. Shortly after being proclaimed, Marcos Jr. said he was humbled by the people's trust and confidence.
To have received over 31 million votes from our countrymen is as valuable a expression of trust as can be had by anyone in public life. And so for that, I thank our people. And beyond that, I promise you that we may not be perfect, but we will always strive to perfection. Thank you very much.
Duterte, meanwhile, dedicated her victory to victims of terrorism, abuse, criminality, and bullying.
The Commission on Elections, our teachers, police, and soldiers, and the honorable members of Congress in joint session, thank you for a generally peaceful and orderly election. Magtulungan tayo para sa isang bayan na mapayapa at nagkakaisa. Mahal natin ang Pilipinas.
U.S. President Joe Biden earlier called Marcos Jr. to congratulate him ahead of his proclamation. China likewise extended its congratulations to the Marcos Duterte tandem. As a new Marcos administration begins, what will be the country's foreign policy as it balances relations with two powerful nations? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez. Ambassador Babe, good to see you again. Welcome to The Source.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Pinky. Good morning to you.
You were in Congress. You witnessed the proclamation of your cousin, Bongbong Marcos Jr. as the 17th president of the Philippines. What did it feel like for you?
Well, it's for me, it was not even, I think the right word to describe it is nostalgic, but more than that, I'm in between because when I was a news reporter assigned to Malacanang during his father's term in Malacanang, I used to spend a lot of time there, and I used to spend a lot of time with Ferdinand Marcos Sr. And I witnessed his father and what he was doing at the study room. I had this distinct privilege of being able to be there because of my relationship, but at the same time, I was a news reporter. And now, here is Ferdinand Marcos Jr. As the new president of the Philippines starting June 30th at noon. So it's really, for me, overwhelming to say the least. I'm a student of history, so I see all of these things from the time that his father became president and now he is president. And in between that, I had the opportunity to be able to interact with the rest of the other presidents after President Marcos Sr. So it's really overwhelming and nostalgic for me to see all of these things happening right in front of my eyes.
Personally, did you ever imagine that another Marcos will become president?
Well, when I first called President-elect, as you know, not only is he my cousin, but I was we were close personal friends, and we used to spend a lot of time together. I used to accompany him, or at least when he first started as vice governor in Ilocos, I accompanied him on several occasions. And I remember exactly what he said to me when he first took office as vice governor. He said that it's time for me and for us to give back to the people that put us back, to put us here. And I think that that's exactly the same thing that he wants to do now as president. He wants to give back the service that his family, especially his father, has done. And I think he's highly motivated to really do well, mainly because 31 million people voted him in office. And the other one, of course, is what happened to his father. And he would like to prove that it's more of that we are not what people have pictured us to be, and that he hopes to be able to not change history. As a matter of fact, I told him that you're not revising history, but you're actually writing history by being president. And I'm very confident that he will do very well as our next president.
And what kind of history do you think must be written with another Marcos in power? After, of course, you already said it, Ambassador, 31 million people voted him in power. And yet there is still that other sector of society who are angry, maybe even afraid, concerned with another Marcos back in power.
Well, let's put it this way. There are those that have what we call the hardliners, that whatever President-elect Marcos does, they will never change their minds. That's something that's their choice. But I think that for those that who did not vote for him, it's really a matter of just seeing what he will do. And I think that if you give him at least a year of seeing what he plans to do, and I've seen it close range in just a few weeks that I've interacted with him. Before that, I was here for about a month before the elections. And then now I can see how hard he is. You can see that he worked hard in the campaign, and I think he'll work twice as hard being the president of this country. So for those who have an open mind, it's a matter of them judging what he will do as president. And for those that have already made up their mind because of the past, then that's something that cannot be changed. But hopefully, at the end of the day, I always say, Filipino pa rin tayo, and we have to look at it from that point of view, a bigger picture. And I'll tell you this is a personal experience myself, Pinky. Right after 1986, I'll never forget it, that, of course, I had a good relationship with the former President Marcos. But I remember exactly what he said in Hawaii when he found out that Vice President Doy Laurel was going to be the Prime Minister. He said, mabuti naman, because Doy knows what to do. He was going to be basically the leader then. But of course, we all know what happened, that it was just a 1 month being a Prime Minister. But I started to interact with the Vice President because he was a family friend, of course, and I helped him in Washington because I was doing some things with a firm in Washington. And succeedingly, we did things. I joined all the business delegations of President Ramos and of course, President Estrada. And I did have an occasion to interact quite a lot with President Noynoy Aquino. In fact, I was privileged to be able to text him and he would answer me back. So I'm just giving that as an example that to me, I don't look at political color. And I think that this president, President Marcos Jr., looks at it that way. In fact, I have just heard, it's just my, what I hear is that he's really looking for people who did not vote for him, or as a matter of fact, people who are what they call the other colors. He was looking for somebody who can actually work in his cabinet. As an example, of course, his NEDA chief is now one that was with President Noynoy Aquino. So he really meant what he said during the campaign. Unity is what he's looking for. He doesn't want you to look at him as a Marcos, but he wants you to look at him as a president of the Filipino people. And I think that that's a very good way to start in how he will write history for our country.
What would you say is his strength as a leader?
You know, I can tell you that in all my years that I have known him, he has a very good heart, really, and he may be irritated or angry at one time, but the very next day, it's as if nothing happened. He's very forgiving in one sense. So he has that kind of quality that is very unique in people like him who grew up basically in Malacanang. I mean, he was born, in 1957, and they were already there when he was 7 or 8 years old, and when they entered Malacanang. So he was sort of like born into privilege to a certain extent, and he admits that. He was, of course, the eye of his father's, the apple of the father's eye, because every time he would come in the room, it's as if nobody was there except him. So he had that kind of unique, but at the same time, he had this sort of like malasakit with people. And that's one thing that I think that he has carried on even up to now. I can see that very much in him right now.
Is Ambassador Babe Romualdez going to be the next DFA secretary? We need to take a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Pinky Webb. Our source today, Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez. Of course, there has been talk that you could possibly be the next DFA secretary. Is this true?
Well, I've been told that so many times. Sometimes I'm beginning to believe it. But to be very honest about it, President-elect Marcos and I had a meeting, and he told me that he was very pleased with how effective I have been in Washington, D.C., and that he told me that he would like me to continue what I've been doing in Washington with the relationship that we've been able to establish there. So with that, I told him that I'm ready to do whatever it is to help you, because for me, anything I can do to help him and to help him succeed is what's important to me than positions. So I was very happy and pleased that if I'm going to be his ambassador, after being the ambassador of President Duterte in Washington, D.C., that'll be my privilege to be able to serve again now as his ambassador in Washington.
So for right now, you will continue on being the Philippine ambassador to the U.S., pending any other possible changes.
I think that is exactly what he wants me to do, which like I said, I'm very honored to be able to be his ambassador in Washington, D.C. And to be honest about it, all our friends in Washington, D.C., including my ASEAN colleagues, are being extremely ecstatic when I told them that they have started to give me despedida dinners and lunches, and now I have to tell them that I will just pay you back for all those dinners. But they were very pleased when they heard that I would be going back to Washington as the ambassador. So, and I'm very happy to do it, actually. Even, of course, I miss the Philippines. I miss my friends. I miss you, Pinky, that we've never had a chance to have another in-person interviews. But our friends in media, but all of you, of course, have been very supportive, which I truly appreciate, and I hope you'll be able to give me the opportunity once again to be able to elucidate on all the things that we're doing in Washington, D.C., aside from our diplomatic work, all the stuff that we've been able to do for our country.
Ambassador, tell us, what would a Marcos presidency look like in terms of Philippine-U.S. relations, comparing to the previous or the Duterte administration? What changes can we possibly see?
Well, I think that one of the advantages of President Marcos Jr., it would be like, he spent quite a bit of time in the United States, so he's quite westernized in that sense. So he knows what life is in a country like the United States, which obviously our democratic system is patterned after. So he knows the value that friendship has been, including the time during his father. So he was able to really bring that out during his past interviews. And in my conversations with him, when I briefed him on our current U.S.-Philippine relations, it is sort of a different level now. And this is what I've always said, that President Duterte opened the door for the people in Washington, D.C. to realize that we are indeed a sovereign country. We value our friendship, but we have to treat each other with mutual respect. And I think that that was, like I always quote Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, who after his meeting with President Duterte said that we should never take our allies for granted, and vice versa. We really need that kind of relationship, that if we're going to be allies and friends, we have to respect each other, and that we should not take each other for granted, which is very important in any kind of relationship. And that being said, obviously our relationship with other countries like China, which is a major country in our neighbor, has to continue with what President Duterte started by reaching out to them and being able to resolve the issues, not only resolve the issues that we have with them, but at the same time have a strong economic ties, which I think President-elect Marcos will do. He will have, he'll reach out to countries like China, India, as he mentioned the other day, and of course the United States, in bringing about the economic recovery of the world, the global economy, which is obviously suffering from the pandemic. So this is the way I see him. Yes, sorry.
I want to go to what President-elect Bongbong Marcos earlier said, that he wants to redefine the visiting forces agreement. Do you have an idea what this means or what it entails to actually redefine the VFA?
Well, the VFA has been around since what, 1993 or 94, I remember correctly, because I was helping Ambassador Tom Hubbard at that time with President, I think it was during the time, I'm sorry, and since 1998, 99, when President Estrada was president. So it's an evolving thing. The VFA has a very, very good use for our troops. This is a training exercise, which is very important for us, having a mutual defense treaty with the United States. The United States sees that as an opportunity, of course, to be able to interact in with our soldiers and the armed forces, and to train us on the ground. And it's been quite useful. Many of our armed forces officers believe that it is something that we should continue, which President Duterte eventually agreed that it was. But we have to continue to improve it, to make it, again, mutually beneficial for both our countries. And I think what President-elect Marcos wants to do is that we have a continuing process, which is already in place, to always, this special kind of relationship with the United States, the Mutual Defense Treaty and the VFA and the EDCA. All of this is subject to a yearly review on how we can improve it and make it much better for both our countries. That is exactly what I think.
As a last question, Ambassador Babe, are there going to be any other visits from U.S. officials here in the country to congratulate or see the president-elect?
Well, before I left Washington, of course, the White House was very pleased with the conversation that President Biden had with President-elect Marcos, of which we were able to get a readout from both the White House and President-elect Marcos himself. And I think that started the ball rolling, so to speak, in this relationship that we have with the United States. The President Biden was very grateful that he was invited by President-elect Marcos to attend his inauguration. And the White House said, you'll never know. President Biden may just make an effort, because, the scheduling of the President Biden's trips are all planned out, like he's now he was in South Korea and Japan. But if everything falls into place, he may just come. But on the other hand, they also would like to send a presidential delegation headed by a high-profile former or government U.S. official. So that's an indication of how the United States sees the Philippines, and the new president, knowing fully well that he has one of the most highest number of votes that any president has received in the past how many decades. So that gives you how important it is for the United States that they see our country. And next week, I think there is a plan, the high-level State Department official that's coming here to hopefully meet with President-elect Marcos and also meet with the government officials that are now here, like place like Defense Secretary De Lorenzana and Secretary Teddy Locsin. So this is a continuing thing that the United States plans to do, is having this continuous meetings with government officials here and hopefully invite them to the United States too.
Philippine Ambassador to the U.S., Babe Romualdez, always good speaking to you. Thank you and take care, sir.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Likewise. Please do.
And coming up, what will be the priorities of the newly created Migrant Workers Department under a Marcos administration? OFW advocate Susan Tutz-Opled joins us live after the break, or joins us after the break. Please stay tuned.